I arrived at my cabin after the worst year of my life, desperate for some peace and quiet. My doctor had practically ordered me to take this vacation, warning that my stress levels were through the roof. All I wanted was 2 weeks of solitude by the lake, sleeping in late and drinking coffee on the deck. I unlocked the door, dropped my bags, and froze. Construction debris covered every surface. The bathroom fixtures were completely gone, and the master bedroom walls were demolished down to the studs. Standing amid the chaos was my father, casually drinking coffee. When I demanded answers, he smiled and said, "I am redoing it for your sister and her husband. They need it more than you." My heart stopped when I remembered the cold truth. This cabin legally belongs to me. Dad, what the hell? I stepped over a pile of broken tiles that had once been my beautiful bathroom floor. I bought this cabin with my own money. You know that. My father shrugged, his casual dismissal like a slap across my face. "Courtney, you have plenty of properties. Your sister needs a place to get away too." I tried to steady my breathing. At 32 years old, I had built a successful career as a property developer, following the footsteps of my grandfather who had taught me everything I knew. While my father and sister always took the easy route, I worked for every penny. I came here because Dr. Patterson said I needed to rest. My blood pressure is through the roof. My voice cracked with exhaustion. This past year had been a nightmare, losing Jackson Development as a major client, breaking up with Todd after 3 years together, and working 80-hour weeks to keep my company afloat. I looked around at the destruction of my sanctuary. This cabin was special. 3 years ago, I had purchased it as my personal retreat, a place where I could escape the pressures of my high-stress job. Now the antique clawfoot tub lay on its side in the yard. The custom vanity I had installed myself was splintered into pieces. Designer fixtures, which had cost me thousands, were piled up like trash. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I demanded, gesturing toward the master bedroom where even the wall framing was exposed. Before my father could answer, the front door swung open. My sister Heather walked in, her husband James right behind her. They stopped short when they saw me. "Courtney, we thought you were coming tomorrow." Heather's voice was high and nervous. Surprise. I was too shocked to manage much else. James stepped forward, extending his hand like this was his place to welcome me to. "Your dad's been working hard. Wait until you see the plans." "Plans?" I turned back to my father. "What plans?" He pointed to a roll of blueprints on the kitchen table. I unrolled them with trembling hands. There, in professional drafting, was a complete redesign of my cabin. My bedroom had been converted into a nursery. A nursery? I looked up at Heather, who was now beaming and resting her hand on her stomach. "We were going to tell everyone next week," she said. "We are having a baby." In any other circumstance, I would have been thrilled for my sister. But standing in the wreckage of my personal sanctuary, watching my family act as if they had every right to take what was mine, all I felt was a cold, hard knot of betrayal forming in my stomach. The next morning I woke up cramped and uncomfortable on the couch in what was left of my living room. The sound of hammering had started at 7. I pulled my pillow over my head, but it was no use. Sleep was impossible. I stumbled to the kitchen to make coffee, finding my father and James already there, speaking in hushed tones. They fell silent when they saw me. "Morning, Courtney," my father said, too cheerfully. "Sleep well?" "Like a princess," I muttered, reaching for the coffee pot. On a pee. Growing up, it had always been like this. Heather was the favorite who got everything handed to her, from the bigger bedroom to the new car on her 16th birthday. Meanwhile, I spent weekends working with my grandfather, learning the real estate business from the ground up. He recognized something in me, a drive that my parents never seemed to notice. "You are like me, Courtney," he used to say. "You understand that nothing worth having comes easy." The memory of his voice strengthened my resolve. I turned to face my father. "This has to stop. Now. This is my property, and I never gave permission for any construction." James snorted. "Always about property with you, isn't it? Never about family." Before I could respond, Heather entered the kitchen, her eyes red from crying. She placed her hand protectively over her barely visible baby bump. "Why are you being so selfish, Court? Family helps family. You have so many properties, and we just need one small place to create memories with our baby. This is not about being selfish. This is about respect for boundaries and private property. My voice was tight with frustration. My father slammed his coffee mug down. I gave them permission months ago. I even gave them a key. It is not yours to give permission for, I shouted, finally losing my temper. Grandpa taught me that ownership matters. Legal ownership. Your grandfather. My father spat the word. He always did favor you. Filled your head with business nonsense instead of family values. I pulled out my phone. I am calling Mom. She is at her prayer group, Heather said smugly. But she agrees with us. She helped pick out the nursery colors. My heart sank further. I noticed for the first time that boxes of my personal belongings had been stacked neatly in the corner. Following my gaze, James said, "We moved your stuff to the guest room. It is small, but you are rarely here anyway." I walked over to the boxes, rifling through them. My photographs, books, even the quilt my grandmother had made me, all packed away to make room for my sister's family. Something else caught my eye. A stack of invoices on the counter. I picked them up. Thousands of dollars in construction materials, bathroom fixtures, custom cabinetry, all charged to my account, without my knowledge, without my consent. You charged all this to me? I held up the invoices, my hand shaking. My father had the audacity to look offended. We knew you would want the best for Heather's baby. Nothing but top-quality materials. The betrayal was so complete, so breathtaking, that I could barely form words. Without another word, I grabbed my purse and car keys. "Where are you going?" Heather called after me. "Anywhere but here." I drove to the nearest hotel in a daze, my mind racing. At the check-in desk, I pulled out my phone to forward my confirmation email. That was when I saw it, a notification from my bank. Login detected from unrecognized device. Someone had accessed my accounts, recently, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who it was. The hotel room was sterile and impersonal, but at least it was mine. I sat cross-legged on the bed with my laptop, digging into my financial records. What I found made my stomach turn. For years, small amounts had been siphoned from my accounts. Always under $5,000, nothing that would immediately raise red flags. But together, they told a story of systematic exploitation. The most recent withdrawal had been 3 days ago, $20,000 to a contractor I had never hired. I tried calling my mother again. This time, she answered, "Courtney, I was just about to call you. Your sister is very upset. Mom, Dad has been taking money from my accounts. For years." There was a long silence. Then, "Your father manages some investments for you. That is all." "No, Mom, that is not all. He has been stealing from me, and now they are destroying my cabin." "Stealing is a very strong word, Courtney. He is your father." Her voice took on the martyr's tone I knew so well. "You have so much. Why cannot you share? Your sister is having a baby." I closed my eyes, summoning patience. Having a baby does not entitle her to take what is mine. "Family helps family," my mother said, echoing Heather's earlier words. After I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Then I remembered something my grandfather had told me shortly before he died. "Courtney, you have a good heart. Too good sometimes. People will take advantage of that if you let them, even family, especially family. Protect what is yours. It is not selfish to have boundaries." At the time, I thought he was being paranoid. Now his words seemed prophetic. I spent the next few hours investigating further. My family had not just taken liberties with the cabin, they had been using all my properties as their own personal vacation homes. My condo in Aspen, my beach house in Florida, the small apartment I kept in the city. All had been occupied regularly, according to the utilities and security systems, during times when I was not there. I called my best friend Sam. "They did what?" His outrage was validating. "Court, that is insane. And illegal. I know. But they are my family. What am I supposed to do? Have them arrested? At minimum, you need to lock them out and get a lawyer." Sam had always been my voice of reason. We had met in business school and had seen each other through every crisis since. He had warned me about Todd, had helped me through the loss of Jackson development, and now he was the only one seeing this situation clearly. "There is something else," I said. "I found out why Heather and James suddenly need a place to live. He was fired from his accounting firm 3 months ago. For embezzlement." "Jesus." Sam's voice dropped. "Does your father know?" "I think he must. It would explain the urgency of the renovations." I opened social media on my laptop and found myself staring at photos of my family at my properties. "Look at this." I shared my screen with Sam. There was Heather lounging by the pool at my Florida house, James grilling on the deck of my Aspen condo, my parents hosting Thanksgiving at my cabin last year. All posted publicly with captions like "family vacation at our lake house" and "holiday traditions at the family cabin." "They have been pretending my properties are family properties," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. All this time. After talking with Sam, I called my therapist, Dr. Winters, and scheduled an emergency session. I had been seeing her since my breakup with Todd, and she had helped me recognize patterns in my relationships. Now, sitting in her office, I poured out the whole sordid story. "This isn't new behavior, is it?" she asked when I had finished. I thought about it. "No. They have always taken from me. I just never saw how systematic it was. Boundaries are especially difficult with family," she said. "We're conditioned to believe that family gets unlimited access to us, our resources, our lives. So what do? The same thing you would do if anyone else was stealing from you and destroying your property. You protect yourself." I left her office with a clear plan. First, I would secure all my properties, then I would consult a lawyer. But when I returned to my hotel room, I found something that changed everything. An email notification about a document sent for electronic signature. A document I had never seen. It was a deed transfer for my cabin, from me to Heather and James. And at the bottom was my signature, a signature I had never provided. My own father had attempted to forge my name on a legal document. I sat frozen, staring at the forged document. This went beyond family overstepping boundaries. This was criminal fraud. With shaking hands, I called my father. "I know what you did," I said when he answered. "Courtney, I am in the middle of something. You forged my signature on a deed transfer. That is a felony, Dad." A long pause. "That document was just a draft, to show you what we were thinking." "A draft with my forged signature? Do you think I am an idiot?" He sighed heavily, as if I was being unreasonable. "Everything stays in the family this way. What is the difference if the cabin is in your name or your sister's?" "The difference is about $400,000, and the fact that it is mine." I was shouting now. "I bought it. I pay the taxes. I maintain it. And we are family. Family property stays in the family. It is not family property. It never was." The conversation went in circles until finally, I hung up. Less than an hour later, Heather called. "Daddy told me what you said. I cannot believe you would threaten your own family with legal action." I took a deep breath. "Heather, what is really going on? Why do you suddenly need my cabin?" There was a long silence, then a muffled sob. "Everything is falling apart, Court. James lost his job. There were irregularities in the accounts he managed. They are not pressing charges, but he can never work in finance again. We had to short sell our house. We are ruined." The admission should have softened me, but it only confirmed my suspicions. "So the plan was to take over my cabin? Make it your permanent residence?" Daddy said, "You would never have to know. That we could handle everything. By forging my signature and stealing from my accounts, that was the plan? You have so much, Courtney. You have always had everything handed to you on a silver platter." The irony of this statement was so profound I actually laughed. "Are you serious right now? I worked for everything I have. Nights, weekends, holidays, while you were partying through college on Mom and Dad's dime. That is not fair." "No, it is not fair. None of this is fair." I ended the call, my resolve hardening. Over the next 2 days, my phone blew up with messages from extended family members. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all pressuring me to do the right thing for my pregnant sister. It was clear my parents had been spreading their version of events, casting me as the villain. My Uncle Frank called to tell me he was disappointed in my selfishness. My Aunt Carol suggested I needed psychological help, that my obsession with money was unhealthy. My cousin Blake, whom I had always been close to, texted that he could not believe I would put property before family. Through a mutual friend, I learned my father had been telling people I was having a mental health crisis brought on by my breakup with Todd, that I was not thinking clearly, that the family was just trying to help me by taking over management of my assets. When my father called again, his tone had changed from conciliatory to threatening. "You need to stop this nonsense, Courtney. Drop it now, or there will be consequences." "What consequences, Dad? Are you threatening me now? I am warning you that you are about to be cut off from this family forever. Is that what you want? Over a cabin?" The emotional manipulation was so transparent now that I could see the pattern. It is not just about the cabin. It is about years of taking what is mine without permission. It is about forging my signature. It is about lies. "If that is how you feel, you are no daughter of mine." He hung up. I sat in my hotel room, feeling strangely calm. I had just been disowned, yet I felt lighter than I had in years. I decided to go to my office, the one place that had always been entirely mine. As I reviewed contracts and caught up on emails, trying to distract myself, I discovered more unauthorized access. Someone had been in my business accounts as well. Small discrepancies in billing, client payments redirected, expense reports inflated. A knock at my office door startled me. It was my mother, with Father Gregory from her church. "Courtney, we are here to help you find peace," my mother announced. The priest nodded solemnly beside her. "By ambushing me at my office? By reminding you of the commandment to honor your father and mother," Father Gregory said. "Your family is concerned about you." "My family is concerned about losing access to my money," I retorted. My mother gasped. "How dare you? After all we have sacrificed for you." The conversation deteriorated from there, ending with my mother in tears, and Father Gregory suggesting I seek spiritual counseling for my hardened heart. After they left, my assistant, Jamie, approached hesitantly. I could not help overhearing. "Are you okay?" I nodded, too drained to speak. "There was a man looking for you yesterday," Jamie continued. "He would not give his name, but he said he was a friend of your cousin Ryan." Ryan was another relative I had not heard from in years. Last I knew, he had moved across the country after a falling out with the family. I had been too young to understand what happened at the time. "Did he leave a message?" Jamie handed me a note with a phone number. "Just this. He said to tell you that history repeats itself." I called the number that evening from my hotel room. The man who answered identified himself only as a friend of Ryan's. "He saw a social media post about your sister moving into your cabin. He thought you should know this is not the first time your family has done this." "What do you mean?" "Ryan inherited property from your grandfather too. A commercial building in downtown. Your father convinced him to add his name to the deed for tax purposes. 6 months later, Ryan was completely cut out. Your father claimed Ryan had gambling debts and was mentally unstable. The story was disturbingly familiar. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Ryan lost everything. He did not fight back in time. He thought family would ultimately do right by family." The man paused. "He does not want to see history repeat itself." After the call, I sat in silence, processing this new information. Then my phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. It was from James. "You might want to check who is actually listed as beneficiary on the cabin mortgage insurance." Oops, I pulled up the documents immediately. Sure enough, the beneficiary had been changed from me to Heather and James. If anything happened to the property, they would receive the insurance payout. But the text revealed something else. They were getting desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. The next morning, I received an anonymous email with attached documents showing that my father and James had already used my properties as collateral for loans to pay off James's legal debts. They had not just been planning to take my cabin, they had already leveraged it and my other properties without my knowledge. The pieces all fell into place. This wasn't just about providing a home for Heather's baby. This was about covering up financial fraud on multiple levels, and I had almost been their perfect victim. The next morning, I made an appointment with Judge Walter Harris, retired. He had been my grandfather's closest friend and mentor. At 84, he was still sharp as a tack, and he did not mince words. "Your grandfather would be turning in his grave," he said after I explained the situation. Bernard was a firm believer in family, but he also believed in consequences. We sat in his home office, surrounded by law books and family photos. One showed him and my grandfather on a fishing trip, grinning like schoolboys. "What would you do, Judge Harris?" His eyes, faded blue behind thick glasses, met mine directly. "I would fight like hell, Courtney. Not just for the properties, but for the principle. What they are doing is not just immoral, it is illegal." He helped me connect with Patricia Lawson, one of the top property attorneys in the state. I met her that afternoon, bringing all the documentation I had gathered. Patricia was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who listened intently, taking meticulous notes. When I finished, she looked up with steely determination. "This is one of the most egregious cases of financial exploitation I have seen outside of elder abuse. We are going to shut this down immediately." "They are still my family," I said, feeling a twinge of doubt. "Family does not commit fraud against family," Patricia replied firmly, "and they are counting on your emotional attachment to continue taking advantage of you." She outlined a strategy. First, a full audit of my finances to document every unauthorized transaction. Second, securing all my properties with new locks, security systems, and legal notices. Third, cease and desist letters to prevent further damage or access. "And then?" I asked. "Then we evaluate whether criminal charges are appropriate or if civil action will suffice." She gave me a compassionate look. "I know this is difficult, but protecting yourself is not wrong, Courtney." Over the next 3 days, I worked with a team Patricia assembled. A forensic accountant tracked every penny that had been misappropriated over the years. The total made me dizzy, nearly $300,000. Security specialists changed locks and installed cameras at all my properties. Legal assistants prepared documentation and notices. I stayed at a different hotel, not telling anyone where I was. But the text messages and voicemails continued. My mother pleading, my father commanding, Heather crying, James threatening vaguely about regrets if I continued. I did not respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on reclaiming what was mine. I visited each of my properties with the security team, feeling a sense of renewal as each was secured. At the cabin, the destruction had continued in my absence. The kitchen had been partially demolished now, too. "We will document everything," the security specialist assured me. Every nail, every broken tile. As we were finishing at the cabin, Heather and James drove up. James jumped out of the car, fury on his face. "What the hell do you think you are doing? You changed the locks?" The security specialist stepped between us. "Sir, this is private property. You need to leave immediately." "This is family property," James shouted. "Tell them, Heather." My sister emerged from the car, her face tear-stained. "Courtney, please. We have nowhere else to go." I almost wavered then. Almost. But then I remembered the forged documents, the stolen money, the years of taking what was mine without even asking. "You should have thought of that before you decided to steal from me," I said quietly. "This property is secured. If you attempt to enter, you will be trespassing, and the authorities will be called." "You would call the cops on your own sister?" Heather's voice broke. "You forged my signature, Heather. You and Dad and James conspired to commit fraud. What did you think was going to happen?" James lunged toward me, but the security guard blocked him. "Sir, step back now, or we will call the police." "This is not over," James hissed as he retreated. Not by a long shot. They drove away, and I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. That evening, back at my new hotel, I received a call from the security company. There had been an alert at my Aspen property. "The cameras caught someone trying to access the property," the operator told me. "We have alerted local authorities." When I checked the security feed remotely, I saw James again, this time trying to break in through a back window. The police arrived before he could gain entry. The next morning, Patricia called with another discovery. "Your family has been renting out your properties on Airbnb and keeping the income," she said. "We found listings for all 4 properties going back 18 months. I pulled up the Airbnb app and searched for my properties. There they were, listed under an account called Family Retreats LLC. Professional photos, glowing reviews, rates that undercut the local market. They had been using my properties as an under-the-table business venture." "How much?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Based on the booking history we can see, close to $100,000 in rental income, none of which was reported to the IRS, by the way. The betrayal was so complete it had become almost absurd. I thought of all the times I had called ahead before using my own properties, not wanting to inconvenience my family if they had made plans. All the times I had paid for repairs and upgrades, believing I was maintaining my investments. All the while, they had been profiting from my generosity. That was when I knew there could be no more half measures. It was time to reclaim everything that was mine and establish boundaries that could not be crossed. With Patricia's guidance, I made the decision to move forward with formal legal action." "Are you sure about this?" Sam asked when I told him my decision. "Once you go this route, there may be no coming back for your family relationships." I looked out the hotel window at the city below. "What relationships, Sam?" "Real relationships are not built on exploitation. My family sees me as a resource to be used, not a person to be respected." He nodded slowly. "Then do what you need to do. I am with you all the way." The next day, my father appeared at my office, unannounced. He had brought his own attorney, a nervous-looking man who kept checking his watch. "This has gone far enough," my father announced. "We need to resolve this like family. We are past that, Dad. Your mother is heartbroken. Your sister can barely get out of bed. Is that what you wanted?" I did not respond to the guilt trip. "What do you want?" "A compromise," his attorney interjected. "Your father proposes that you sign over just the cabin and 2 other properties to a family trust. In return, all other matters will be considered resolved." I actually laughed. "After everything, you still think you are in a position to make demands?" "No. There will be no compromise on theft and fraud." My father's face darkened. "You ungrateful little. I think we are done here," I said, standing. "Patricia will be in touch with your attorney." As they were leaving, my father turned back. "You will regret this, Courtney. The family is all you have. When you have driven everyone away with your selfishness, what will you have left?" "Self-respect," I answered, "and everything that is legally mine." Later that day, a childhood friend, Amy, reached out. We had grown up next door to each other but had drifted apart after college. "I saw Heather's posts about you on social media," she said. "I wanted to check if you were okay." I braced myself. "What is she saying? That you are having a breakdown? That you are vindictively making your family homeless because of some business setback?" Amy hesitated. "But that does not sound like you at all." I told her the truth, all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I am not surprised," she finally said. "I remember how they always took your things, even when we were kids. Your bike that your dad gave to Heather, your college fund that mysteriously got smaller because your parents had emergency expenses, the family vacation home that was supposedly for everyone but somehow you were never allowed to use. Her validation meant more than I could express. You remember all that?" "Of course I do. And I will tell anyone who asks the truth about what kind of people your parents really are." That evening, James called. His tone was different, conciliatory. "Look, things got out of hand. We can work this out." "There is nothing to work out," I replied. "The properties are mine. The money you took will be repaid. End of discussion." "You do not understand the position you are putting us in," he said, his voice taking on an edge. "People are asking questions at my old firm. Your father has investors breathing down his neck. That sounds like a you problem. Be reasonable, Courtney. All we need is access to the properties for a few more months, just until things settle down." The implication was clear. They had made promises to others based on assets they did not own. Now those chickens were coming home to roost. "No," I said firmly. "And this conversation is over." The next day, at Patricia's office, I made a shocking discovery. While documenting the unauthorized access to my properties, we found evidence that James had been bringing business associates to my cabin and beach house, not for vacations, but for meetings. Meetings where, according to emails we recovered, he presented himself as a successful property developer with family holdings across the country. He was using your properties to create a false impression of success and wealth, Patricia explained, to attract investors and clients. For what? Based on these emails, some kind of investment scheme, promising returns that seem implausible. I felt sick. Not only had my family been stealing from me, but they had been using my properties to potentially defraud others as well. What happens now? I asked. Patricia laid out several documents on her desk. Now we take definitive action. These are formal cease and desist letters for each family member involved. These are notices of trespass for all your properties. And this, she pointed to a thicker document, is a formal complaint we will file with the district attorney's office regarding the forgery and fraud. I took a deep breath. And you think this is necessary? Given the escalating nature of their behavior and the potential involvement of third parties? Absolutely. I signed where she indicated. As I did, I remembered my grandfather's words again. Protect what is yours. It is not selfish to have boundaries. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was honoring not just his advice, but also my own worth. I was no longer willing to be the family ATM, the easy mark, the one who could be manipulated through guilt and obligation. I was taking back what was mine. All of it. The family meeting was set for Saturday morning at Patricia's office. I arrived early, my stomach in knots despite my resolve. Sam came with me for moral support, waiting in the reception area. On his advice, I had dressed professionally, armor against whatever emotional tactics my family might employ. My parents arrived first, my father bristling at the formal setting, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Their attorney, the same nervous man from before, clutched his briefcase like a shield. Heather and James came 10 minutes late, a power play that fell flat when Patricia simply delayed the start time without comment. Heather looked pale, her pregnancy now visibly showing. James wore an expression of barely contained anger. Patricia began by laying out the documented evidence. Bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals, the forged deed transfer, documented property damage, the Airbnb listings and income, emails discussing the use of my properties for James's business meetings. Before we proceed further, Patricia said, my client is willing to consider a settlement agreement that would prevent this matter from escalating to criminal charges. My father scoffed. Criminal charges? For a family misunderstanding? Patricia slid a folder across the table. Forgery is a felony in this state, Mr. Taylor. So is fraud. There is nothing to misunderstand about that. His attorney, after reviewing the documents, whispered urgently in my father's ear. The color drained from his face. This is ridiculous, James interjected. After all we have done for you, Courtney. All the support over the years. What support exactly? I asked, finding my voice. The support of taking my money without permission? The support of using my properties as your personal vacation homes? The support of trying to steal my cabin out from under me? We are family, my mother said tearfully. Family helps family. Family does not steal from family, I countered. Family does not forge signatures. Family does not lie and manipulate and gaslight. My father leaned forward, his expression hardening. I have been managing your finances since you were a child. Everything you have came from my guidance and connections. That is a lie, I said calmly. Everything I have, I built with my own hard work, following Grandpa's teachings. You have been skimming from my accounts for years, taking credit for my success while undermining me at every turn. Your grandfather, my father spat. He turned you against us, filled your head with nonsense about being independent. He taught me to value myself, something you never did. Heather began to cry loudly. I cannot believe you are doing this to us, Court. I'm going to have a baby. Where are we supposed to go? Perhaps to a home you can actually afford, Patricia suggested coolly, rather than one you attempted to steal. James stood abruptly. This is bull. We are not sitting here to be insulted. Sit down, Mr. Bennett, Patricia said. unless you would prefer to have this conversation with the district attorney instead." He sat, seething. My father tried a different approach. "Courtney, be reasonable. We can work this out between us. This lawyer is just stirring up trouble for her fees. I have been reasonable for years, Dad. Too reasonable. But I am done being taken advantage of." There was a knock at the door, and Amy entered. My family looked confused by her presence. "What is she doing here?" my mother asked. "Providing additional testimony," Patricia explained. "Miss Walker has provided a sworn statement regarding patterns of financial and emotional exploitation she witnessed throughout Courtney's childhood and young adulthood." Amy nodded at me supportively. I felt a surge of gratitude for her friendship. She had been there, had seen the truth when I was too close to recognize it. "This is absurd," my father blustered. Childhood squabbles being dredged up by a bitter woman. "Actually," Amy said, her voice steady, "I have receipts. Literal receipts, text messages, emails spanning 20 years. I kept them because even as teenagers, I knew something was very wrong with how Courtney was treated." James leaned over to whisper something to my father, who nodded slightly. "Look," my father said, his tone suddenly conciliatory, "we may have overstepped. In our eagerness to help Heather and James in their time of need, perhaps we took some shortcuts." "Shortcuts?" I repeated incredulously. "Is that what you call forgery and theft now?" "Poor choice of words," his attorney interjected quickly. "Mr. Taylor acknowledges that mistakes were made. We would like to discuss a reasonable settlement." Patricia outlined the terms. Full repayment of all misappropriated funds with interest, formal signed statements acknowledging they had no ownership claim to any of my properties, legally binding agreements to never enter my properties without explicit written permission, and public retractions of any defamatory statements made about my mental health or financial management. "And in return?" my father asked tightly. "In return, Miss Taylor will not pursue criminal charges at this time." "This is extortion," James said. "No," Patricia corrected. "This is restraint. My client would be well within her rights to pursue this matter criminally. She is offering you a civil resolution out of consideration for family ties." My parents and their attorney huddled in whispered consultation. Heather was still crying softly. James stared at me with undisguised hatred. "We need time to consider these terms," my father's attorney finally said. "You have 24 hours, Patricia replied. "After which, we will proceed with filing criminal complaints." As the meeting broke up, Heather approached me hesitantly. "Can we talk? Just us sisters?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. We stepped into a small conference room alone. "I did not know about the forgery," she said immediately, "or about the money Dad was taking from your accounts. I swear, Court." I studied her face, wanting to believe her. "But you knew the cabin was mine. You knew all the properties were mine." She looked down. "James said it was all family property, really. That you were just the name on the deed for tax purposes. And you believed that? Even though you knew I bought the cabin with my own money? Even though you have seen the mortgage statements in my name?" "I wanted to believe it," she admitted in a small voice, "because we were desperate. James lost everything. His reputation, our savings, our house. When Dad suggested we could use the cabin, it seemed like a lifeline. For the first time, I felt a flicker of compassion for my sister. She had always been naive, too willing to believe what was convenient. But that did not excuse her actions. "Heather, you could have just asked me for help. Honestly asked, not gone behind my back and tried to take what was mine." She wiped at her tears. "Would you have helped us? Really? After how things have been between us for years?" It was a fair question. Our relationship had been strained since childhood, competitive and fraught with resentment. But still, I would have helped you find a place within your means. I would have made sure my niece or nephew had a safe home, but I would not have given you my cabin, and I certainly would not have tolerated being stolen from. She nodded slowly. "I understand, and I am sorry, Courtney, for what it is worth." As she turned to leave, I called after her. "Heather, what James and Dad were doing with the investment meetings at my properties. Be careful. If they were defrauding investors, You could be implicated too." Her eyes widened in genuine shock. "What are you talking about? Ask James about the meetings at my beach house. Ask him about Family Retreats LLC and where that money went." I held her gaze. "And maybe get your own lawyer." After everyone had left, Sam joined me in the conference room. "How are you holding up?" "Surprisingly okay," I realized. "For the first time, I feel like I can see everything clearly." "What happened with Heather?" "I think she might be starting to see the truth too. About James, about Dad. She has been a pawn in their game as much as I have been a target." Sam squeezed my shoulder supportively. "You did the right thing today, Court. It took courage." As we were gathering our things to leave, Patricia's assistant entered with an urgent message. "There has been an incident at the cabin. The security company called. Someone tried to break in, and when they could not, they started a small fire on the porch." My heart raced. "Is everyone okay? Was there much damage?" "The fire was contained quickly. Security footage shows it was James Bennett. Police are looking for him now." I sank into a chair, the reality of how far my family was willing to go finally hitting me. "He tried to burn down my cabin, which makes this more than fraud and theft now," Patricia said grimly. "This is attempted arson, and it removes any obligation you might have felt to keep this civil." I called Judge Harris to update him. His response was immediate and firm. "Courtney, you need to proceed with criminal charges. This has escalated beyond family conflict. These are dangerous people who believe they are entitled to what is yours, by any means necessary." "Even my own father?" My voice broke slightly. "Especially him," the judge said sadly. "He has been enabling and orchestrating this for years, from what you have told me. The pattern will not stop until there are real consequences." That evening, as I was having dinner with Sam at a quiet restaurant, I received a text from an unknown number, with a video attachment. It was James, clearly intoxicated, ranting into the camera. "You think you have won, Courtney? This is just the beginning. You have no idea what's coming. Your perfect little life is about to burn down around you. Literally. Watch your back." I forwarded it immediately to Patricia and the police detective handling the case. Within hours, James was arrested for attempted arson and making criminal threats. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my father. "What have you done?" he demanded without preamble. "I have not done anything, Dad. James set fire to my property and then threatened me on video. His own actions led to his arrest. He was upset. You drove him to it with your stubbornness." "No," I said firmly. "He made his choices, just like you made yours when you decided to steal from me for years. I want you to drop the charges immediately. Use your influence. This family has been embarrassed enough. That is not going to happen." "Then you leave me no choice." His voice became cold. "I am going to contest your grandfather's will. Claim he was not of sound mind when he left you his business interests. I will tie you up in court for years." I almost laughed at the empty threat. "The will was settled 8 years ago, Dad. There is no legal basis for contesting it now. But thanks for confirming that this has always been about your resentment over Grandpa choosing me to carry on his legacy instead of you. You ungrateful little. Goodbye, Dad." I hung up. Later that day, I received an unexpected call from my mother. Her voice was subdued, lacking the usual dramatic flair. "James was arrested. Did you know?" "Yes, Mom. He set fire to my porch and then sent me threatening videos." A long silence. Then, "Your father is not well, Courtney. He has not been for some time." "What do you mean?" "He has been making increasingly risky investments, borrowing from one person to pay another. The business has been struggling for years, but he would not admit it." She paused. "I think that is why he has been taking from your accounts, to cover his losses." The revelation should have surprised me, but somehow it did not. It explained the escalating desperation, the increasingly brazen attempts to access my properties and assets. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because it has gone too far. The fire, the threats. This is not who we are as a family." Her voice cracked. "At least, it is not who we were supposed to be." "It is a little late for that realization, Mom." "I know." Another pause. "I will testify if needed. About the forgery. I saw your father practicing your signature. I was stunned into silence. My mother, who had enabled my father's behavior for decades, was finally choosing truth. Why the change of heart? I finally asked. Because I am afraid of what happens next, if someone does not stop this cycle. She sounded tired, defeated, and because you deserve better than what we have done to you, you always did. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from her. Not enough, not nearly enough, but a start. Thank you for telling me, I said simply. That night, I sat alone in my hotel room, reflecting on the day's revelations. My father's financial desperation, my mother's belated honesty, Heather's confusion, James's rage. A family built on lies and exploitation, now crumbling under the weight of truth. I felt grief for what we could have been, but also a strange sense of liberation. The truth, painful as it was, had finally set me free. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Get some rest. Tomorrow we finish this. And for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply, without dreams. 1 year later, I stood on the deck of my fully restored cabin, coffee mug in hand, watching the sunrise over the lake. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and possibility. The legal proceedings had concluded months ago, more quickly than anyone expected. Once faced with the overwhelming evidence and the additional charges stemming from the arson attempt, my father and James had accepted plea deals. My father received probation and mandatory financial counseling, along with a restitution order for the full amount he had taken from me over the years. James served 6 months in county jail for the attempted arson and was now on strict probation. The cabin renovation was complete, but in my own vision this time. Gone were the garish colors and impractical design my sister and James had planned. In their place was a space that truly reflected me. Warm woods, natural stone, large windows framing the lake views. My sanctuary, reclaimed and renewed. My phone chimed with a text message from Heather. Still on for lunch today? I can pick up sandwiches on the way. Our relationship had been the most unexpected development of the past year. After the initial shock and anger subsided, my sister had reached out, asking to talk without James or our parents present. Over a long, tearful lunch, she had apologized sincerely for her part in what happened. She had filed for divorce from James soon after his arrest, unable to ignore his role in the escalating situation and the other deceptions that came to light during the investigation. Now 5 months old, my nephew Lucas was a sweet, curious baby who already seemed to love the lake as much as I did. Heather and I were rebuilding our relationship slowly, one honest conversation at a time. My father and I remained estranged. His pride would not allow him to offer a genuine apology, only justifications and minimizations. My mother vacillated between respecting my boundaries and attempting to broker a reconciliation. I maintained polite but distant contact with her, still processing my feelings about her years of enabling behavior, followed by her 11th-hour honesty. The legal settlement had included the establishment of a legitimate family support fund, professionally managed with strict oversight. Family members could apply for assistance for genuine needs, medical expenses, education costs, emergency housing. But the fund had clear guidelines and accountability measures. No more blank checks, no more exploitation disguised as family helping family. Judge Harris had called it a compassionate but prudent solution, addressing my lingering sense of obligation to my family while protecting me from further financial abuse. My business had thrived in the aftermath of the conflict, partly because I was no longer hemorrhaging money to my family's schemes. I had launched a new division focused on helping others protect their assets and establish healthy financial boundaries, especially with family members. The family finance peace seminars had become unexpectedly popular, showing me that my experience was far from unique. Sam joined me on the deck, handing me a plate of breakfast. Our friendship had deepened through the ordeal, his unwavering support giving me strength when mine faltered. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, leaning against the railing beside me. "Just reflecting," I replied. "A year ago, I thought I had lost everything. My family, my sanctuary, my peace of mind. And now?" I gestured toward the lake, the cabin, the clear blue sky. Now I understand what my grandfather was trying to teach me all along, that protecting what is yours is not selfish, that boundaries are not walls, but foundations. He would be proud of you, Sam said quietly, not just for fighting back, but for how you did it, with integrity. Later that day, Heather arrived with Lucas and the promised sandwiches. We sat on the new dock, feet dangling in the cool water, watching boats pass in the distance. "I saw Dad yesterday," she said cautiously. "He asked about you. And what did you tell him?" "The truth. That you are doing well, that you are at peace." She adjusted Lucas on her lap. "He misses you, in his way, though he will never admit it." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The hurt was still there, but it had dulled with time, with distance, with the healing power of truth and boundaries. "I want Lucas to know his aunt," Heather continued. "To learn from you the things I wish I had learned sooner. About hard work, about standing up for yourself, about healthy boundaries." "I would like that," I said sincerely. "And maybe someday, when Lucas is older and Dad has had more time to reflect, there could be some kind of reconciliation. Not forgetting, but moving forward." I squeezed her hand. "Maybe, but that day is not today, and it may never come, and that has to be okay too." She nodded in understanding. One day at a time. That evening I hosted a small gathering at the cabin. Sam was there, along with Amy, Jamie from my office, Dr. Winters, Judge Harris, and Patricia. People who had stood by me, who had believed in me, who had helped me find my strength when I thought it was lost. As we raised our glasses in a toast to new beginnings, I looked around at these faces, at my beautifully restored cabin, at the peaceful lake beyond. I had lost the illusion of family unity, but I had gained something far more precious: self-respect, clear boundaries, and relationships built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. My grandfather had been right all along. Nothing worth having comes easy. Not success, not self-respect, not healthy relationships. But the struggle makes the victory all the sweeter. The next morning, alone again in my sanctuary, I sat down to write in the journal Dr. Winters had suggested as part of my healing process. The entry began, "Today marks 1 year since the day I stopped being a victim and started being an advocate, for myself first, and now for others. I had learned through pain and betrayal that family is not just about blood ties or shared history. True family, whether born or chosen, supports your growth rather than exploiting your success, respects your boundaries rather than trampling them, and celebrates your strength rather than trying to diminish it." As I closed my journal and looked out at the sun sparkling on the lake, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the grandfather who taught me to value myself, for the friends who stood by me in my darkest hours, for the hard lessons that had ultimately set me free, and most of all, for my own courage in finally saying, "Enough, this is mine, and I am worth protecting." Have you ever had to establish boundaries with people close to you? How did you find the strength to stand up for yourself, and what did you learn from the experience? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity, and share it with someone who might need to be reminded that setting boundaries is not selfish, it's essential for well-being. Thank you for listening. And remember, protecting what is yours is not just about property, it's about honoring your own worth.